Hey, good morning, afternoon, evening. It's Chase Cunningham, Dr. Zero Trust, recording here for Cybersecurity HQ. As you can see, I'm traveling and I'm in your typical corporate space where everything is whitewashed and it's kind of depressing. So anyway, that being said, let's move on and let me give you the top 10 things that you need to know this week. Number one, tactics, power, strategy, and zero trust. This came from Meritalk, Meritalk. This is CISO for the federal government, Chris DeRusha, Tactical Zero Trust Progress. Chris DeRusha said this week the federal civilian government has made considerable progress on both the tactical and culture fronts in efforts to implement zero trust security architectures at federal agencies according and in line with the Biden administration's executive order. He said that tactical progress was moving forward, which tactics drive strategy. And his comments are, we are down the road. What we did early on was actually spend a lot of time developing specific implementation plans with the agencies, and then they move forward. He said this is going out over a 3-year period. He also says that we're starting to see culture change and the pickup for other agencies. My favorite thing, and this is him talking to hear sometimes from a CIO or CISO, is I'm doing this because it's the right thing and I want to do it, not because you told me. That's exactly what you're trying to get from anybody in the space. That's the value proposition of a real strategy. And again, folks, if the federal government can do this, which is a giant, slow, archaic, crazy organization, anybody else can. So know that. Number two, there are limits to any good strategic approach. The Federal News Network has got an article out there that talks about the limits of zero trust. This is perfectly valid and worth listening and reading because every strategy has some limits. Anyone that tells you anything else is full of shit. Collaboration across classified security levels and domains is going to be a problem. That talks about the U.S. government, their JADC2 program, cross-domain solutions, and basically the real reality of what they're talking about in the context of the federal government here. And this may not be applicable for lots of businesses per se, because you don't have high side, low side, special access programs, et cetera. But you have a delineation between those areas of effort, and therefore they won't cross-pollinate at all. So it kind of negates the counter siloing effect that ZT strategically helps with. Does it mean you don't do ZT? No, it just means that you're not going to be able to do the ZT cross-pollination type of thing that people are working towards. Micro-segmentation fits into that, et cetera, et cetera. Number three, there's a ZT summit that's going on. It's coming in from Microsoft. This is going on in Redmond. So if, Microsoft people are listening to this, you want somebody to come out there and talk about ZT, I happen to know a guy. So, feel free to ping me and I'd be glad to come out there and talk some ZT for people. Drago's got $74 million. That's a lot of cheddar and funding. And interestingly enough, they were arguing against zero trust for those networks. Now, there's a caveat to this, right? So they're really talking about to secure OT networks, argues against zero trust. They got $200 million for their thing back in 2021. They want to take it all the way to the future, blah, blah, blah. And they start getting into flat networks, and they say why zero trust isn't coming to OT networks anytime soon. While a zero trust approach would help us reduce risk in OT, Tonkin, the person in charge of this, said in his view, a full zero trust approach is not feasible for many OT environments. Okay, don't disagree totally. Tonkin explained that true zero trust is very difficult to achieve in most OT networks due to the inherent requirements and constraints of these systems. OT devices need to implicitly trust each other for secure and low latency communications. Now, there's more to this. I would say go read the article, but I don't necessarily agree with everything that was said there. OT networks actually, in my opinion, fit well into ZT because there's things that should communicate, things that shouldn't. Now, the problem is if you have implicit trust, which is what they're talking about across all those systems, that's a risk. That allows cross-pollination, that allows lateral movement, et cetera, et cetera. So there's some nuances to this article. Go read it, make your own thoughts, whatever else. But I think that what they kind of mean to say is that just flat blanket ZT doesn't necessarily function inside of an OT environment carte blanche, which is not wrong. The NIST has put out some information on implementation for cybersecurity strategy in cloud-based applications. Totally worth reading. I would go check that out. It's on executivegov.com. Firewalls is still out there. Corporate firewalls talks about setting rules back to basics. Honestly, the takeaway from this is that you should be able to do basic rules, and firewalls are not, and this is according to the article, firewalls are not necessarily a security technology. They're a technology that can enable a security strategy, but firewalls help packets get to where they're supposed to go. And that's not necessarily straight up hardcore a security thing, which is interesting. What's the best line of defense? Well, it depends on who you talk to. The best line of defense, according to this article, which keep ransomware threats exactly where they belong, by David Boland, Security Today, talks really about simplest and most effective means to protect security against ransomware threats is by storing a second copy in the cloud. Now, this shouldn't be earth-shattering to anyone that it's a good idea to have backups. However, make sure that your backups are secure as well, because there are incidents and there are proof of ransomware organizations going after cloud-based backups just to make it miserable for people when they go, you know what, screw this, we'll just go to the cloud and we'll deal with you later. So the point is, if you're going to back up, which you absolutely should, make sure that you understand the totality of the reasons that that is valuable and how to take care of it as well. The MGM 8K filing to the SECs there wasn't super informative. And interestingly enough, if you saw today, there were some other articles about the sort of phishing and the social engineering side of this. It's pretty comical. I hate that the people at MGM are suffering. That's not comical, but the whole thing, the way this thing's playing out is an exciting example of how security can go sideways. The NSA has released guidance on deepfake threats. Now, I hate to be the I told you so guy, but I was writing about deepfakes when people said deepfakes weren't a thing, and now the NSA is advising guidance against it. Oh, and what they're talking about it specifically for? Elections. So yeah, be aware. Validate, vet, and look at your research and resources and be smart. If it doesn't look like it makes sense, it probably doesn't. And know that it's very, very easy for someone to do deepfakes and trick people into following content. And then lastly, MOVEit, the gift that keeps on giving from hell. Shell says its Australian BG group business hit by MOVEit breach. And this was as of the 15th of September. They were hit with MOVEit attacks. Several businesses globally reported breaches, et cetera, et cetera. Oil and Gas said it identified some personal information related to affected individuals assessed without authorization, made attempts to notify them. Shell completed $70 billion takeover of BG Group in 2016, bringing it into the portfolio. And now they've brought that dirty laundry in with them. So this is a good use case around when you do an acquisition, you bring them in, you bring that dirty laundry into your house, bad things can happen. You know, MOVEit was at that organization prior. They probably didn't patch stuff fast enough, or it just got pushed to the side, because that happens all the time, and things went sideways from there. So if you got MOVEit, move it and go fix that problem. That being said, I'm Chase Cunningham, Dr. Zero Trust, reporting for Cybersecurity HQ. That's the 10 things you need to know in cyber this week. And as always, stay smart, stay safe, and stay secure. I'll catch y'all on the next one.